All right, good evening. It is Tuesday, August 9th. We're going to call to order the M Grove Charter School Strategic Planning Meeting, the first of the 2022-23 year. We're going to go ahead and hopefully everyone got to review the minutes. Can't believe it was from June was our last meeting. Were there any questions or comments or updates or changes?
I didn't have any.
Okay, so we'll accept those. Before we begin, there's going to be, excuse me, a change as every year. Danny Maitland will become the chair of the Strategic Planning Committee. Co-chair will be Charity, how do you say her last name? Longnecker. And then also Jason Chubb will be on the committee as well. So that'll begin this meeting, and then next meeting, Danny will lead it for us. So on the agenda, the first thing this evening, I hope everyone had a great summer and is looking forward to the new school year. We have the policies presented for the following board meeting. You want to go through?
So what I thought we would start to do as part of an ongoing agenda item for this committee is to bring up as the administration is drafting policies to bring them up here to get both staff and board and parent feedback on some of the items prior to sending them off for legal review and then first reading to the board, so that we're able to kind of flesh out some details of certain ones and then potentially answer any board members' questions about the policies prior to the second reading when we're asking for approval, when questions or clarifications or requests for additions or omissions might hold up moving the policies forward. So tonight, I'm not going to go through all of these because this is kind of like the first time that we're going to do this, and this is actually the policies that are up for approval at Tuesday's meeting. So what I did is I listed them here, and I gave the link to the previous board meetings agenda from June, where all of the policies are attached to the agenda. So I would just ask anybody on the committee here if they have any time over the next couple days, really prior to Monday, if they have any requests or questions or clarifications, to send those my way along with what policy you'd be referencing, so that we can either get that answered or get things updated or explained prior to Tuesday's meeting when we're asking for revision. Then the next meeting that we have in September, I'll be bringing a batch of policies that are still draft written prior to first reading for the board in that September meeting, so that we can get a little bit ahead, but include some more people in the conversation, as well as the policy drafting of these, especially the ones that are related to students and operations and programs that we're writing. So just again, asking if you want to go in over the next couple of days, go through some of these. There are a number, 3 nurse-related ones: diabetes management, AED, and naloxone. We then have some emergency preparedness policies and our relations with law enforcement and school security personnel. And then the final 3 are about flag exercises. It's a short policy about the drafting of a school calendar on a yearly basis, as well as the guidelines for school day. So again, by Monday, that would be super helpful. The second item on the agenda tonight was just to share, and it is included in the agenda as an attachment, an updated draft, and we're still finishing this, of sort of like the bigger school-wide annual initiatives for the 22-23 school year. Like we went over this in a little bit more detail in June. So if you want to go back to look at the June minutes, I read through all of these and kind of explained in a little bit more detail what we were looking to accomplish. There are some big items on here related to the ISM scheduling consultant. We're going to be developing a portrait of a graduate that's going to go along with our strategic plan. And you can see that each of the departments are sort of broken down, but we also still kept the priority alignment language when we made that graphic for our comprehensive plan, where there were the 4 pillars of rigorous teaching and learning, supporting all learners, modernizing our facilities and systems, and building community. So you'll still see an alignment to those sort of pillar statements, even though we've now kind of flipped it sideways and built out our initiatives by department as opposed to just underneath those plan priority alignment statement umbrellas. We thought that this would be a little bit easier to understand, both internally, sort of which department's working on what initiative, as well as for the board and the community to see, this is what we're working on with regards to curriculum instruction. This is what we're working on with regards to student wellness or facilities or technology or student activities. So we're going to have this updated by for Tuesday, as well as an annual goals presentation for the board that's going to go over some of these, wrapping up last year and looking forward into next year. So whether it is from the last meeting when we met back in June, or if you had an opportunity to jump into this prior to the meeting today, was just looking for questions, comments, things that staff or parents who are here think is a priority that we may need to discuss about trying to fold into our time and work for over the next school year. Obviously there's a lot of things on here of trying to accomplish, and it's broken down by departments, but just again, looking for some general feedback or comments before we move on to the board presentation on Tuesday. And if you need to see it, there's a copy attached to the agenda from tonight.
Brian, is this something that you plan to put on the school's website so it is visible to parents? And then is it something that, because it is broad and it's a lot, right? So is it something that you plan to provide like maybe a quarterly or biannual update on? Yeah,
so we'll touch on it almost at every board meeting as part. We'll come back to it every month in this meeting, and then these minutes will get approved at the board meeting and summarized at the board meeting. So they would hear sort of that summary of what we talked about, and then throughout each month, Mrs. Bishop has already given to the administrator sort of a board calendar, so that we're mapping out each month sort of what presentations are being made and what updates are being made on these goals, as well as monthly approvals that need to happen so that we don't drop the ball on anything. And then once this is approved, we'll go in and we'll also update this dashboard that's found on the website underneath the school board tab. So we will go in and we will update our progress on things that rolled over from last year, as well as add in new items going into next year with sort of the goal statement that you can find. So this is available on the website right now. But after Tuesday, we'll update and remove and update progress from things from last year.
Gotcha. And I'm assuming a lot of those items are kind of fluid, right? Like they could go into the 2023-24 school year and even beyond.
Yep. So if we rolled over things from. So when on Tuesday we'll talk about things that we've wrapped up from last year. We'll talk about things that are rolling, like rolling into 22-23, as well as sort of what are some of the new ones that are the major ones. Some of these, if you look, are very departmental specific. Like updating the servers at the tech servers at Campbellsville and State Road as a project for IT, but it's done when it's done. So we'll just kind of give an update on those, where there's some other bigger ones that we're going to need this committee and some other parental feedback, like the portrait of a graduate. Like what are the core aspects that we want to see graduates leave the school with? That's more of a larger endeavor that we would give more frequent updates, as well as need more stakeholder input. So anything else about that kind of final draft? We still have one more update. We need to do a couple more timelines for achievements and evidence updates on that. But I think the departments have kind of come together and said these are some of the bigger ticket initiatives that are going to be going on. And then sort of underneath this, just so that the board and I guess staff and parents are aware, underneath those, the principals also have sort of divisional based initiatives and goals that they have fed up to Jen Weaver and to myself and to Kristen, saying like these larger initiatives are sort of K through 12. They're more time, potentially more human capital, and needing more stakeholders. And then there's the things that that Miss Ray, that Mr. Messick, that Miss Lambert, and Miss Johnson are trying to do within their particular divisions that are also goals for them. Who then will also be coming to board meetings to kind of report out on progress on some of those. So, an easy example is high school grading and reporting that we're still working through. Mr. Messick will come to the board meetings and continue to give updates on that progress, even though that's not necessarily on these annual initiatives, because it's kind of ongoing. All right. And so the last thing for tonight, and this is going to be a little bit of a discussion. So, and I know that the majority of the people here are staff as are secondary, so that's okay. One of the initiatives that we are going to undertake for next year is to really examine our student orientation and onboarding process from pre-application to student application to registration. And then there's kind of like a long gap that occurs between when we offer that first lottery spot in March until August, when we start to do some onboarding and orientation activities. So it's like, what do we need to have to happen in between that time period, as well as what do our orientations look like? And then what does the first 30 days, almost 30 or 60 days look like for new kids who are coming in? So our one of our goal statements is that we're going to develop a comprehensive orientation program that provides students with a deep understanding of the school's expectations and culture. We want kids to, one, feel connected through the enrollment process, and then that long gap of time that's like, if you're on the parent forum, you see those posts like, I haven't heard anything, or they have a billion questions, because that's natural for parents between March and August, when they enrolled into this new school and they haven't really heard a bunch of stuff, and staff leave, and we're just administrative staff over the summer, and they might not get a summer letter until like the end of July. So we really want to look at what that gap looks like for supporting both parents and kids. And then what do we want kids knowing, experiencing, understanding, receiving even, or creating as part of an orientation program, so that they're able to come into school prepared for what our expectations are and integrated into the culture of the school. Secondary to this, we're also going to be looking at the divisional transition periods. So what does third grade need to come into fourth grade? Now, we do this already, but we're going to kind of relook at it and make sure that it is consistent and hitting out all of the targets that we want. But what does the transition from third to fourth look like? What does sixth to seventh look like? And what do our eighth graders get and need to know coming into high school so that they're able to springboard in there? So what I'm going to do is I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to create a whiteboard here. You all should have the ability to write or draw. And I know that most of the people on here are secondary related, but just trying to get a sense as you let that question churn over in your mind of what are some things that you think that we'll talk about new students in particular really need to know, understand, experience, receive, or create prior to starting school. And you can throw ideas, you can type on the whiteboard there. Everybody should have access to that. So like, for example, I'll give one. I think that all new kids should receive an AGCS t-shirt. I think that is, while it sounds simple, is really important for kids to integrate into the culture of the school, to feel connected. I think kids receiving something like that it says that I'm known, recognized, and I'm being received by the school. So I think that receiving some type of AGCS apparel that they're able to wear when school starts is a great way to integrate them into a positive school environment.
Do we have like a welcome packet of any sort?
We do. So the welcome packets, though, are typically, we've had welcome packets for parents, and they've differed year to year and division to division. So I think that's one of the goals here is like, when we're talking about a parental welcome packet, what does that look like and what needs to be in here? So that's what we're going to be talking about. Or when our students come to our orientation session, they get a packet. What's in it? What do they need to know? What are those essential pieces of information? So some of that is packets, right? It's reading material and literature for them to go over. But when I'm thinking of an orientation program, that's why I keep saying, like, what do they need to experience? What do they need to understand? What do they need to receive? Or even what do they need to create? Do we think it's important that they create something for the school or for the staff to tell us who they are prior to coming in, so that their teachers are sort of getting information about new students, right? Teachers, wouldn't it be nice if, I know you get to know all of the new kids, right? Because they're new to you that year, but many of them have been with the school for a while. So is there something that you would like to know more about a student who might be coming into your class next year, who's brand new to the school?
Hey, Brian.
Yep.
All right, why can't I type on the screen? How do you type on the whiteboard?
Just hit the T over on the left. There should be a
Yeah, I don't have a T.
if you're on a phone, it probably won't work. Are you on an iPad?
No, I'm on my laptop.
You
It's
should
okay.
see over on the left-hand side of the whiteboard, there should be a tools, a toolbar.
Nope, that's okay. So do we have anything, just out of curiosity, that, I like that. It's kind of what I was saying and thinking in the middle. Someone said a panel for students. Do we have any like videos, welcoming videos or tour videos made by students for the students?
We did one for the middle school like years ago. It was like a typical day in the life of a middle school student. but just having a library of those could be helpful. Being able to, I like that, being able to kind of maybe speak to a group of students, and that would be a great student government activity that the officers kind of come in and are able to talk to those new kids. That's a good idea. So these are the things that we're looking for. Like what are these opportunities for integrating the students so that they're able to hit the ground running and understand what's available to them and what our expectations are.
Yeah. And do you have do they get together new students, when you have, for instance, let's say 15 new 8th graders, do they get together so they all know that they're new and they can have some solidarity?
Yeah. So we do have orientations coming up for new kids that are coming in. And we've done a number of different things with them through the years. They've come in. I remember Miss Alex, and wasn't it you who made the goose chase for the kids?
We have done some scavenger hunt type things. Yeah, they enjoy. And we have had current students come, usually 8th graders or current high school students will come to our new student orientation, which is helpful as well. And they can walk the kids around and give the tour.
Yep. I remember them running around, they run around to the farm and to the different parts of the school physical building, like the physical plant, so that they're able to figure out where they're going and what's around.
I didn't know if it was excuse me, an ongoing thing throughout the year so they could keep checking in. But that's good. I like it.
Well, even and you say ongoing, and that makes me think of something else. Like, we will typically enroll students after the school year starts.
Right.
So we have this orientation sort of experience that kids who enrolled early and are available to come in August get to experience. But what happens when we enroll a student like the second week of September? Are we just enrolling them, putting them in classes and kind of throwing them to the wolves? And what can you replicate from the more robust August one that's going to also support the September or October enrollee?
Right. No, I just thought it was, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, for Campbellsville, after we draw, because we have so many new kids, because all 180 kindergarten students are new, we do something every month. So after they're drawn in March, I'll go to the libraries and invite them. So we send personal invitations for them. We read at Rooted. We go to libraries in all of the communities so that they start seeing our face in March. And then in the July or in the summer, we do similar things. But Kelly and I do a welcome video, show them the playground, but we try to touch all those kindergartners one time a month somehow.
Yep. So then at the end of this, I think our goal would be that, to have that established. And Maggie, I know you'd have this, but here's the calendar of events that we're typically going to have, so that when we roll over year to year, everybody kind of knows what the expectation is.
Yep, that sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
I know that some of the parents were suggesting if there were any kids over the summer months that they would be in the same grade. Is there any way we could have some parent volunteers who wouldn't mind meeting up in the summer with a new student, and just that way that new student has someone from the beginning that they know?
Yep. I even think on a larger scale, just community-based grade level outings that are hosted by families. We can't be every grade level, every district, every community. We would stretch ourselves really, really thin. But if we had parent volunteers, hey, 5th grade Coatesville students, we're going to get together at this park just to kind of play and get to know each other. That would be super helpful. It's a great way to involve our parents. And then it gets kids together during the summer months.
Guys, one thing I would think about from a secondary standpoint would be the ability to have follow-up communication after whatever initiative you have, right? Like if you had that orientation day in the summer and they get to go around the building and they meet some kids, like a lot of times after processing, you come up with some questions that you didn't really think of. And then who's my person, whether it be a student that they can email, or if it's a teacher or a counselor, whoever, like that ability to follow up in an easy way. And I think your bigger bang for your buck too is those last like 60 days leading up to the school year, right? Like, yeah, I think you can do little things in March and April and May. But if you can think of creative ways, even if it's not like in person, whether it be Zoom or other avenues of communication, those last 60 days, especially like going into high school or going into middle school, I think you get the best bang for your buck. I just don't think that they can necessarily need to be in person because you have people traveling, you have people going down the beach, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, how are we going to be creative to, communicate to those new students in a way that can be convenient for everybody?
Brian, I was thinking about what you were saying about the students that arrive like mid-year, or like the secondary students that kind of show up in my class. And it's always like awkward and you can see they're uncomfortable and you welcome them, etc. Is there any way to possibly pair them up with another one of the new students that did go through the orientation, so it's not completely unfamiliar?
Yeah, I mean, we can probably do it a couple different ways, or Jen had written in, and we had talked about this, even like some of those new kids that come in, that they have some type of transition week. Like, we don't just throw them into your classes the first day that they're enrolled and coming in. Like, they would kind of go through even if it's maybe a couple days, and it can't be a whole week, because then that's pulling a lot of people to
like shadowing
those kids busy. But they could shadow, right? They could meet people, they can go through those things, and it's not just tossing them right into their academic classes. Now that, you're delaying more of them being integrated into your classes, but they're more bang for our buck as a school to have them comfortable, integrated, and aware of the expectations from a school-wide standpoint, and then kind of ease them in. Anything else to add to the board?
And there's a lot in chat. I'm not sure if you're getting it, because
Yep, I'm getting it.
I don't think some of us can get to the whatever reason, which is fine.
I'm trying to summarize the chat onto the whiteboard so that we.
Yeah. And Jen and
So
Heather, you're right. The parents are definitely, that's a great point.
Yeah, so, and then the required always ends up being somewhat of a difficult thing. So, like, by law, we can't hold up once they fill out an application and are offered a spot for enrollment. We have a very specific amount of calendar days until we have to make them an active student and enroll them on our rolls. And then there's only certain documentation that a parent needs to provide after enrolling, accepting a spot that would hold up that trigger for those days. So requiring parent orientation in order to complete enrollment or things like that could be difficult to kind of navigate around. But I think having more parent orientation opportunities, right? Yeah, or we do some type of positive incentivizing for attendance that would be welcomed of the parents for the parents. And then I know we did, Heather kind of brought it up. We did have in the past, we had asked, this was probably 6 years ago, we had asked existing parents if they wanted to be like a mentor family for a new family. That got hard to kind of keep up year over year, but that's something that we could look at again and look for volunteers. We had some of our, legacy parents and families who were there, offer to kind of be points of contact on onboarding other parents.
And we are working on that too. Even we have a new student orientation coming up that we are having some other families come in to meet with the parents while the students are getting tours.
This is a good list to start with. Anybody else, anything to add?
What I can do, Brian, is before the next meeting, I can share with you just like a draft, like a month by month thing that we do.
Yep.
So that's at least the start for ELC.
Great. Well, I will save this.
Brian, do we have any idea what other schools do? Do they do the same thing? Just out of curiosity.
I can reach out to and try to get some information about. No, it's a good idea to reach out to Collegium and Renaissance. The online cyber schools are a little different. Like,
yeah, no, you wouldn't do that. No.
And most districts, I think they just kind of do like it's just like a summer day, and they do grade level transitions. Every district kind of does their building handoff things a little bit different. Like if you go from one building to another for those transitions. But from a charter school perspective, I can reach out to the enrollment departments at Renaissance and Collegium and see if they have any.
I wasn't looking to
suggestions or ideas.
More work on your plate because there's a great foundation here. I just wondered if we happen to know.
Great. So I saved that and exported that. Again, this is a project that we're going to be working on. And then this was sort of the first, just throwing out the question of what some people believe is really essential for kids to either, again, experience, receive, create, and understand so that they're able to be more comfortable within our school environment and prepared to come in. That's a good question. So at the same time as this is going, as we're having this conversation, Mr. Maitland or Dr. Maitland asked, how many new high school students do we have? We are, again, this summer, not seeing to date, right? So we still have August, but we're not seeing the amount of attrition that we always have over summer. Now it's still early, and that may be coming here late in August. But as of right now, we've only enrolled, I think it's 7 new 7th graders and 1 new 9th grader. Because we haven't lost the amount that has required us to.
We don't have the opening.
Type of backfilling. And then our high school numbers have by grade level. If you're looking at our enrollment budget numbers over the last couple of years, you've seen that our high school numbers have been increasing, and that is just almost a byproduct of that, where we used to only have 100 9th graders because we had 135 8th graders and 40 of them left and things like that. Like, more of those 8th graders are staying, and then they're matriculating through the high school, where we're having now over 100 kids graduating, where a couple years ago we only had 66. So they're staying with us, which is creating pressures, but is why we're doing a new building project.
And Danny,
That speaks volumes, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously you're doing good things if people aren't leaving. They weren't happy, they would leave. It's pretty simple.
and Danny, you'll get, Brian usually sends out, when do you send that out? Monday, you'll send the
Enrollment.
the enrollment report.
Yeah, I'll have, July and August are always difficult to do because
Yep.
there's so much up and down. But I'll have something for the board on Monday, and then numbers about summer attrition to date, summer enrollment to date, and then overall enrollment in K through 12 to date for the board for Tuesday.
So yeah, Danny and Charity, you will get that on a monthly basis before our meeting, just so you know.
Great. Well, that is all
Cool.
I had for tonight.
Is there anything else that anybody wants to discuss or bring up, or any last minute ideas? This was great, Brian. Very good. If you do have any more ideas, send them to Brian. These are great. Our next meeting will be, I'm just looking at the calendar. I always got the calendar. Looks like September 13th. Is that? Yep. So same time, 7:30 virtual. It should be on your calendars.
Yep.
If there's nothing else, we will adjourn the meeting, and thank you everyone for showing up. Please enjoy the last, I'm not sure when the teachers go back. Enjoy the last week or two you have, and try and stay cool with this heat, man. It's nasty out there. So
Great.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
have a good night.
Good night, everyone.